I'm here at FT Live and PWM's flagship Wealth Management Summit in London, where industry leaders are unpacking the forces reshaping finance, from the rise of AI and private markets to the growing power of family offices and the challenging fractured world. The world of wealth management is changing and changing fast. This is the Debrief. Hello and welcome to the Debrief, analysing key trends from the Global Wealth Management Summit 2025. And joining me today is April Rudin, founder and CEO of the Rudin Group. We got Malik Sawa, senior partner and managing director of wealth management at Global Leader Group, and a veteran of HSBC, Merrill Lynch and Citi. And we got Alois Perker, founder and CEO of Perker Partners. And to start off, we're going to look at some clips. One of the loudest conversations that we had at the summit, and that was AI, which was about the real, not hypothetical, impact of AI on wealth management. Let's take a look.
The AI tools have developed from simple things like meeting notes and summaries, which is a very basic part of AI, to augmenting individuals, to using deep research, to challenge the research we've done, to improve on how we communicate with clients.
So I think there are massive implications on client reporting, also on the investment process, how we do the analysis. So look at aspects of behavioral finance, do analytics via AI. So it's a massive positive change, I would say.
I don't foresee, for the time being, advisors and portfolio managers being replaced by AI. I think if we were to engage with a client in this discussion, I think clients actually don't want to be disintermediated with their advisor or their portfolio manager. I think that it will augment and help and support the delivery of the service.
How should firms, balance, that human relationship and machine intelligence in their client messaging?
So I think it's really new ground for firms to figure out where their position is and where the line is to communicate the fact that on balance they are using technology and they're technology savvy, but do they really need to bring up the fact that they're using AI? In most industries and in most cases, you don't have firms explaining what's under the hood, how does everything work? And so I think at this stage, early on in AI, it's better to give clients an understanding of the fact that your advisors are using technology to help manage their accounts, but their takeaway might be you're using AI, I'm not receiving personalized service, you're using AI, why am I paying for these services? So I think it brings up more questions than answers.
That also has an impact, on empathy as well. You built teams that thrive on empathy and storytelling. Can AI coexist with that culture of moral leadership, or do you see a risk of depersonalizing the business?
Tom Cruise in Minority Report would get this ball that says, anticipating there's a murder about to be committed. That is AI, which anticipates the future, not today, but tomorrow. April's point is spot on. Clients don't need to see the background of AI. They need to see only two things, which is human nature, whether you're ultra high net worth or just a mass affluent. WIIFM, what's in it for me? And MMFI, make me feel important. Both those are human traits. So AI will help you with the personalization of one. So I'll give you an example. There's a market crisis, and all the research reports and the talking heads on financial news talk about this is what's happening and this. Too much noise. Clients need only three things, which the best primary advisors offer. First, what happened in brief? It could be last night, today, a week ago. Second, what does that mean in the markets for the future? And the most important is, what does it mean for me? Do I need to take action? AI will be able to do that more effectively, but it is ultimately the empathy, hand-holding, and it's really important in that situation to keep clients grounded.
What the client really cares about is receiving stellar service. And when we think about a fantastic wealth management relationship, it's an RM, an advisor that understands the client really well and intuitively knows what's correct or what's appropriate curated message to the client that really the client cares about. Now, when we use technology as a communication means, they need to be in tune with what the advisor feels, thinks, what he knows about the client, and so I think that's the hard part, to get technology in sync with that advisor, because the advisor will not go away. We know that. There are channels where we will have more direct service. Firms are hesitant to really use AI direct to consumer still, because there's a certain risk in there. But again, that synchronizing that hybrid approach of advisor and AI, and then getting those two channels in the same rhythm, in the same thinking, I think is the trick, and that's really hard.
We also heard a lot about how we live in a more fractured world, how there's the rise of private markets and the ESG reset. Let's take a look at what some of our panelists had to say.
We're at the start of a new phase of disorder. The US is on a different path. It's no longer the predictable and reliable partner that it was, and the world is adjusting. We're adjusting to a multipolar world. There's no doubt that the pace of wealth creation in Asia will outstrip that of Europe, but there's significant old money still in Europe that requires effective management and stewardship.
Malik, a question for you. You've run wealth franchises across Asia, the Middle East, the US. How do you see this fragmentation playing out for clients?
I don't see it as fragmentation. I see it as a two-pronged approach. Think of it as a core and satellite. We have clients in Asia and Middle East. You know which markets they really follow? US. It's the biggest, the deepest, the most liquid, and actually the most fun too. It's 60% of global equity markets. Used to be 80 decades ago, went down to 40, it's back up. So you have to have US exposure for that purpose. So there is that globality, irrespective of where you are. Now it's interesting that S&P 500, 40% of their revenues come from international. So if you're a conservative US investor, just buy S&P. Warren Buffett likes it, and you have international exposure. Now, there is always and has been a home office bias or home location bias. So if you're in the GCC, and I'm heading out to Dubai, and when I ask the people, they're investing in UAE, in Saudi especially. If you're in India, they're investing in India, and then in Southeast Asia in their region, and so on. So you have a core as a US, which is really global with all the innovation, and then you have the satellite, which is your own home location. I think there's one aspect which is unique these days. About 37% or so of global equity markets growth is coming from the Mag 7. Talk about uber concentration. Is it a long-term trend? Yes. Is it a bubble? Absolutely.
From a structural standpoint, does that mean the platforms and the data models need to become more local to serve these new wealth hubs effectively?
I wouldn't agree with that. I think we need to have a global thinking in place, because we live in a global world, but we need local extensions. People care about local things first and foremost, but we live in a global world, so we need to be connected into a global backbone. So if you are a vendor, a wealth management technology vendor, you need to build for a global market. The US is probably one market where you can get away with just being local, because you have such a huge market at hand. But Citi, for example, Citi operates in 7 big markets around the globe. They cannot replicate everything in every market every single time, and clients that operate on a global scale, right? So you have families that are, they might be in Dubai, they might be in Switzerland, they might be in the US. Now you have tax regimes that you need to overlay. That's what the local extensions is, right? So you have a common denominator platform that needs to work everywhere. The clients have similar expectations everywhere, but then they live in the reality that just you need to know what Italian taxation requires, and that's very specific, right? I think it's different from the US taxation.
Trust is what a lot of these global wealthy families are talking about nowadays, and that was one of the key trends at the Wealth Management Summit, how families are becoming more global, as Alois just mentioned earlier. Let's take a look at what they had to say.
It's actually quite a large proportion of the private wealth management industry, growing over the last 20 years. Today it represents around 20% of the market share for private wealth is managed by family office independent wealth managers. And there are maybe an additional statistic. There are now around 1,800 companies in Switzerland versus 100 private banks.
The earlier a family starts talking about money, the better it is. But financial literacy and understanding of wealth, of a purpose, of family purpose and vision, and financial behavior, it's something that is built over years, and it's a long process.
It's opening up the dialogue and establishing more trust. And we've long recognized that we need to move away from just financial planning, and that we can't leave family dynamics to chance. So working using psychological neuroscience research has enabled us to start having a different type of dialogue with the family offices and the family members themselves.
You often talk about the next gen lens on branding. What do these shifts tell us about how younger inheritors, view wealth, and how firms need to kind of reposition themselves to stay relevant to that audience?
Many firms put it into their brand promise and they'll talk about trust, but trust is something that really needs to be demonstrated. It can't be talked about. We can't say you should trust us. You need to earn someone's trust. And that for each person is going to be different. For different families, it's different. As he said, I think it's also most importantly built during volatile times. It's not in the good times when the market's on the rise or when things are even, humming along in a family. A lot of this conversation has also been on investing, and these wealthy families and families in general have so many other issues and challenges with keeping their family together, keeping their values together, and ensuring that they even trust each other. And so the role of a private banker and the role of wealth management firms has expanded greatly over the past years to include more than just investment advice. And I think that's where advisors have the opportunity to truly build trust with older generations and also younger generations.
So values being very, very important there. Malik, you've been a champion for women's empowerment and moral leadership. Are you seeing families, especially in Asia and the Middle East, approach succession and governance differently now?
They indeed are. But there's a difference. Asia is very big. And I've lived in Tokyo, Hong Kong, Singapore, Philippines. In Japan, finally we have a female prime minister. But the women are still not in senior ranks. When you go to Hong Kong and China or Greater China, Taiwan, women actually are very heavily represented in senior positions, which is, I think, a direct correlation to why businesses are successful. That's my observation. Singapore is the same way. If you go to Indonesia, a little less so. But in general, it is a growth. Now let's look at GCC. 34% of global wealth is controlled by women. The percentage of women accumulating through inheritance and through businesses, professionals or setting up businesses, is growing faster than it is for men. So trend is our friend. My wife is a banker. My two daughters are smarter than my two sons, and my wife is smarter than I am. So I have experience on a daily basis. Women are smarter. But when she invests and she's in private banking, it's more caring, family first. And I think that gets replicated around the world. When they have more power, it's better for the world. And if Lehman Brothers was Lehman Sisters, it probably wouldn't have folded.
I want to add a few points to that. Number one, of course, yes, check. I agree with that as the mother of two sons also. But what I wanted to say is, in researching for our recent book, Wealth Management with the Difference, one of the things that we found is all of this talk about the wealth transfer has been grossly exaggerated. Women live longer, and due to longevity, we're calling it a wealth transition rather than a wealth transfer, it's a horizontal transfer first, with wealth going to women, gaining control before it actually is vertical. power seems like the wrong word, influence I'm going to call it, because women have sometimes greater influence over their family as well. They have also different values and they see things differently and have a gender lens. And most firms have not figured out how to serve women as a segment. And even thinking about women as a segment is probably wrong. Women can't be a tab on your website because there's not a tab for men on your website. So it's thinking about how does a brand in its values, in its language, in its look and feel appeal to women and appeal to different generations. That's truly important. So how do you draw people in rather than repel them? So I think that unpacking this wealth transfer is really important. Some of that wealth transfer and the estimated amounts are really being eaten up by healthcare costs. And then lastly, the wealth transfer, when it does happen vertically, is going to Gen X. And Gen X is now on the precipice of retirement. So we have decumulation, 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 whereas most advisors have most experience in accumulation. So it really is a completely different dynamic.
And that brings me to the question of, for analysts, does that mean that the tech stack needs to evolve then to support this multi-generational engagement?
Trust is communication, right? I think so. When we think about communication and correct level of communication, it happens different on different generational cohorts, right? I think so. If you talk with the very young, you need to be very short and precise and to the point and understandable. If you talk to elder generations, they'd like it maybe more elaborate and more explained. And so this is not even a generational difference. Sometimes it's a personal preference, right? I think, and it's and so that's where, for example, AI has a huge role, because you can with large language models in a very short period of time, you can take the same content and deliver it up in a very visual, in a very snippet kind of way, or you can deliver it in a much more elaborate way. And that, I think, is when if firms start communicating to clients in a personalized manner, they will gain trust. And the multi-generation platforms need to do exactly that.
And I'm sure leaders across wealth management firms and private banks are looking at these topics, and leadership was a big topic at the summit. Let's take a look at what some of the panelists had to say about that.
The key lesson for me, having practiced leaderships and studied leadership, is the need for courage. Leadership is a privilege. At times that will mean that if you wear that privilege, you will have to be prepared to put yourself in harm's way. You will have to be prepared to speak truth to power.
In your opinion, what does courageous leadership mean to you in this moment, and when markets, I guess, and geopolitics and technology all seem to be in flux?
You know, John Flint, the former CEO of HSBC, who spoke at this conference, there's one sentence he used: you have to always be able to speak truth to power. And that doesn't mean a confrontation. When you're a CEO or in any leadership capacity, you need to be making sure people below you, with you, and above you hear undiluted, honest opinions from everybody. That creates a culture of moral clarity. And then when you go to clients, which we talk about less, Alex mentioned the client experience. Exceptional client experience only happens when you are A, compassionate, care for them, and B, competent, you know what you're talking about.
Brand has never been more important because it really stands for something now. And the brand experience that people have is very important. We are facing a talent shortage. Our ability to recruit advisors plays into brand and also technology. Younger people and people in general want to work for a company that not only has a value system that they agree with, but they want to have the level of technology to work with. They want to have a certain type of client that they work with. In a world where you have a lot of choice, brand really matters for not only investor, but people don't think of it for talent recruiting. And that's where it might even be more essential, is how do you fight this talent war when you need to recruit people of all different types. There was once, a real drive and push talking about to hire people with a finance background or a technology background. And now more firms are looking at liberal arts and other kinds of backgrounds as being better relationship managers and financial planners, especially considering the fact that technology is doing a lot of the heavy lifting in the background. So it's really the personal skills and your ability to relate to clients that makes the difference and creates these long-term relationships and then builds trust. And that's how brand plays into that.
And thank you for watching. Be sure to check out the highlights of the Global Wealth Management Summit over on the PWM website. Goodbye.